So one thing to notice about that I really had a hard time getting used to is the new Moodle lets you dock things. If you've never used this version of Moodle before, when you click on that, it actually goes to the side of the page. So I was calling poor Helen saying, "My God, they've all gone away. What have I done?" And she's like, "It's a floating bar on the side of the page." So if that happens to you, if suddenly the blocks that are on your page disappear, check and see if they've not been tabbed. Okay, so the things I wanted to talk about today are some things that I have found very helpful for sort of bookkeeping type things that one does in a class. And I participated in the pilot of Moodle when we were deciding whether to go with Moodle or Blackboard, and that was when I discovered a lot of these things, and it was like light bulb. So one of, I think, the things that are the most useful is this thing called Choice. It's essentially designed for you having students sign up for things. So it's kind of like if you guys have used a doodle poll, it's very similar to that. And I've given an example here where, oops, I don't have editing on. The other thing, so how many of you have never used Moodle at all? Okay, one person. So I'll remember to say these things, like when you're using Moodle, if you want to edit anything as a teacher, you'll turn editing on. You guys will see this because I have the teacher's view, right? You're seeing my screen. You guys won't see that on the page if you're looking at it because you're a student in this class, okay? So when So why don't you guys go ahead and do example 1, sign up for a lab. So click on that. Just click on it, and it'll ask you to choose something. So essentially, when you set up a choice, so now I get to view the responses, who's answered, who's not. I could contact those of you who haven't answered and say, answer the thing, if I wanted to, but I won't.
What's the name of this tool?
Choice. Yes. So to add an activity of which choice is one, you go to the section in the course that you want it. So in this case, this is the block that we're working in. And I would go here, and I would choose which activity. So all of the things I'm going to show you, I think with maybe one exception, are activities that you would choose from this menu. The only difference between activities, which are up at the top, and resources, which are down at the bottom, it's kind of an artificial distinction. The assumption is that students have to do something with the activities, whereas resources are more things like a file, a book that you're posting, right? Something like this, a URL. So you can set this up in a number of ways, which makes it really, really handy. You can set it up so that students, so here's the page when you start to set it up. So here's where I've named it, and that's what the students see on the thing. You can give it a description. What's nice in the new Moodle is you used to be able to give things descriptions and they would never show up anywhere that I could ever find. Right now, in most cases, not all, there is an option to display the description on the course page. So if your description is, for example, instructions, I could have set this up, and then when I was ready for this to, people to see this or something, I could display the instructions so they saw, sign this up. Because of this, I included sort of, you have until Friday, right? So it's kind of, I think, helpful that you can now display descriptions. So the general is you kind of set up some basic parameters. The things you want to pay attention to are options. So you can choose whether or not students get to update their choices. If they decide, oh, wait, I can't do Friday, or whatever, they can come back. Here's where you limit the number of responses. If you choose yes, then you enter a number in each of these things. And you can, 0 to 1,999. If you want some of these to be limited but not all, you can always put a number that's greater than the number of people in your class. That's the only workaround I've seen to do that. If you put 0, it actually won't show up as an option that they can sign up for. So So you basically type your options in here, and then if you do need to limit it to the number of students, you check yes, and then you type in the number. You can keep adding fields, as many as you want. So that sort of sets up what the choices are, and then this results sets up who can see what and when. And you have a couple of options. You can always show students the results, which means when they log into the choice, they see who's already chosen, which is how I had it set up for this one, which might be useful if you're having people sign up and they want to sign up with their friends or something like that, if it's a group work maybe. You can choose to only show results to students after they make their choice. So if you don't want them to put themselves into groups according to who likes one another or something like that, right, you could set it up to be anonymous. You could set it up so they don't get to see it until everybody has chosen, right, so the end date of the choice has passed. Or you can set it up so they never see it at all. If you do decide to publish the results, you can decide whether or not people see that, like for example, here we have 12 choices. If you choose just anonymous results, you might see that 6 people have signed up for this one, 6 people have signed up for that one, 6 people have signed up for this, or 3 people have signed up for that. So if you want to set it up so people know like which thing is filling up, but you don't want them to see who's actually in it, you can do that. Yeah.
Can you set it up so that, say I have a conference schedule and I want just one student in each time slot, so I tell them sign up for 3. And can I go back and fiddle with it so that each person just gets one slot and sort of republish that? Or am I stuck with what they've inputted as the final?
Yeah, I think you only can do this where each person makes one choice. I think that's a built-in assumption. So you couldn't have them sign up for 3 things. I'm trying to think about how you do that. Unless you might have, you could do a choice for like your first pick, your second pick, your third pick, or something like that, and you could like try to get everybody's first pick and then go to the second pick. Does that make sense? Like 3 separate choices. Right. That might be one way to do it. And you could do the first one and then copy it, and then do it again, and do it again, and do it again.
There are other tools could use something like a questionnaire or a quiz.
Yeah. So a questionnaire might be the easiest way to handle that. Let me show you this other one. Oops. Page. Oh, and the only other thing is availability. So availability is sort of when people can access it, right? And the nice thing about availability, as you will see for many of these things, is when you do set an end date for something, a due date, it will display on the upcoming events box. If you have that, that's a block that you can enable. You'll notice that we have a questionnaire coming up that's due at 3:30 today. We have a topic assignment that's coming up. So anything that has an end sort of due date can show up there. It will also show up on this calendar, which you can also, that's a block that you could hide or choose to put in there.
How do you choose the calendar?
For any of the blocks, you just go to the add a block and pick it. And so since I've already picked these, they're not visible. Let's delete them. So I've deleted it. Now I'll go and add it back. There it is, calendar. And I don't remember if calendar is new or I just never noticed it, but this is the first time I've ever seen it. So, and you can move any of these blocks where you want. A lot of the blocks, oops, I said that. A lot of the blocks also, students have the option of moving them. So they might move them if they find them more useful over here or over there. But you sort of set the default positions for them. And if your page gets cluttered with too many blocks, I keep deleting this block. I don't know why it keeps coming back. You can now tab them, and they go over here. We'll bring them back. So that's also kind of handy, and that seems to be new. Okay, so choice is really good if you just have one thing you want students to decide, right? And it can be asked in a sort of multiple choice kind of way. So there are people that use this for voting, for example. Okay, we could do 3 things for the last week of class. Which one is your top choice? Save my choice. So that's an example. But if you want to get into more sort of sophisticated questioning, it's probably useful to do a questionnaire. Questionnaire. So Moodle has 2 activities you could add that sounds like they would be surveys. Well, 3 if you count choice, right? Questionnaire, which is actually a survey that you design. And then the survey is actually, there's some sort of verified survey assessments, some ones that people have used in educational research outside of, Bryn Mawr, who have been auto-loaded in here that you can decide you want to administer them to your students too. But if you want to make your own, questionnaire is the way to go. The benefit of a questionnaire is you get more questions. So I've got this one. Whoops, I'm not eligible to take it. Let me move my... So another thing that is new in Moodle that could throw you, oops, is that the administration things for some activities, like questionnaire, quizzes might be one, has now moved to the administration block on the side of the page. So if you notice, when I click on this, I get something that says you're not eligible to take this. You guys probably click on it and see the actual questions, right? See the survey. If I want to see the questions, I have to go here to preview our questions. So here's my survey. You can see I was able to do multiple questions, right? Oh, this didn't show up how I thought it would. I can also see responses. Surveys are like quizzes in that you can see a summary of responses, or you can see sort of responses for individuals. A new feature in questionnaire is that you can send, if you click on the non-respondents tab, you can send a reminder email to everyone who hasn't responded, just in one sort of fell swoop, saying, please answer. So Jane, for this you could give them a list of options and say sign up for multiple ones of these, right? And then you could look at the results and make up the schedule. Does that make sense? Because you could put in more than one question here. And we could play around with how best to do that. Oops. So that's my other questionnaire. Some folks use these for, so you can set up questionnaires to be repeating. So questionnaires, you've got the timing, which is the same for all things when you want it to open and close. Again, if you set a close date, it will show up on your events calendar. You can set up, and here's what might make questionnaire more useful for you than choice. You can set it up so that students can respond many times. They can respond only once. So once if it's a one-time survey, many times if you want them to be able to, like maybe you're collecting information on something and you want them to be able to, every time they find it, come up and say, here it is, like bugs or something in the page. You could set up a daily questionnaire. You could set up a weekly questionnaire. You can set up the questionnaire so that it's full name, you see who responded each time they respond, or you can set it up so that it's anonymous to you, which is nice. So if you want to be able to get input from your students, but have them, know that it's anonymous and you're not going to be judging them or whatever, you can set up questionnaires. Unlike quizzes, questionnaires can be anonymous. Questionnaires have gotten more sophisticated in the sense that students can save and come back. If it's short, it's probably not a big deal. If it's something very long, maybe you want to let them know that. I haven't gotten to play around with this yet, but apparently you can now also add in branching questions. So if essentially the choice that a student makes determines where they go next in the survey. And you can also make this a grade if you want. So I think for this little example of a weekly one, I did, some of you might know, this is kind of a common in-class assessment technique where you ask students to write really quickly what is the sort of most confusing thing that we've been talking about today, or something like that. What is the muddiest point? So this way you could maybe do it for readings that they had done at home, right, so that you can then talk about that, or you could do it after class, just a quick online survey. What of the lecture, were you completely lost or whatever. And I've got some examples of other similar types of questions to get at how students are doing. There's a link here. Okay, so survey, choice, scheduler. Does it sort of make sense what those things are, even though you'll have to play with them probably to figure out what you want to, which is best for you? Okay. So the other feature that allows people to sign up for things is something called Scheduler. Scheduler essentially allows you to set up blocks of time. It's all about time. When you're free, or if you have TAs in your course, for example, you can set up blocks of time for them where they might hold office hours if you want students to sign up for office hours. So that's the example I used here. You essentially give, like, when I set this up, actually let me show you the settings. You can set it up so that students register for only one thing at a time, or they can only register once, period. You can set up how many slots, by default, how long the slots are. And you can set up notifications so that you get notified, they get notified when someone signs up or changes their sign up. Okay, and then once you've done that, oops, go back to, how do I see it? Is that this? No. Okay, go back. This is one of the ones that I will warn you, interface-wise is a bit clunky. So if you are trying to use this and find it it's not doing what you thought it would or something like that, let me know and we can sit down, because I have to remind myself how it works every time I do it. Essentially, you add your slots here, so you can see there's add slots. You can add a whole bunch at once. You can add... So you might add, for example, if you know you're going to have office hours every Tuesday and Thursday from now until the end of time, you could set those all up at once, and it would just keep doing it. You can set up how many of these slots students will see at a time, so maybe they only see 2 weeks at a time or something like that. You can set up how much lead time you have to get before they can no longer sign up. So for example, if you want to have 48 hours notice before anybody makes a change, you can set that up. So Sydney signed up. Yay, Sydney! For a slot. I can see that she's signed up. Did you get, well, if you check your email, you might notice that you got a notice saying that you got it. I can also set it up so that students get a reminder on the day of, the day before, something like that. You have an appointment with me, don't forget, kind of thing. Yes? That I don't know. So in other words, if they're always going to meet at a certain time, I don't know. You can have, your slots can be as long as you want, 30 minutes, an hour, what have you. They can also be, you can set up more than one student can sign up. So if you want to meet with students in small groups, if your students are meeting with a TA and they need to meet in small groups, the TA can go in and set up times that she's available, and then the students can sign up. The nice thing is that Sydney, for example, if she suddenly discovers, oh wait, I've got something else at 10 o'clock, she could actually change this, go on, log into Scheduler, change it herself, and that would be that. We wouldn't have to email. She could move to a different slot.
And you would get an update?
I would get an update, yes. No. You have to log on to see what slots are available. Right. But she wouldn't be able to take a slot that another student had already taken. Does that make sense?
Okay, so...
And I have seen where there was a guy who fed this to this is sort of long-term, pie-in-the-sky thinking, but he fed it to an LED screen, like a little small computer screen that he had mounted on the outside of his door so that the students could see when they had signed up, and that was just a feed, of who's coming up next and stuff like this. So,
And so once again, also requested it?
I don't know. Let me set it up so that 2 people can sign up for a slot. I'll add a slot. So let's add Monday. Well, let's add, what's today? That's today. I want to make sure I'm picking a time that hasn't happened yet. Oh, another nice feature, and this is new, you can also now give yourself a break between slots. It used to not be like that. This setting, reuse this slot. If once a student signs up for something and they unsign themselves up, and you don't want that slot to go back into the fold, you can actually use that setting to do that so that it doesn't become open season on that time slot. I'm not sure quite why you would do that. Okay, I just added some for today at, where did they go? Yeah, these here right up at the top. See how there's 3 showing me that up to 3 students can sign up? So why don't several of you sign up, and I'll see what happens. Okay, so we have 3 people signed up for this. It looks like, I have to revoke everybody all at once, unfortunately. But what happens when I do...
Can you choose one of them or both?
I don't think so. Let's see. I'm going to try and revoke Doug. Nope, it revokes everybody. Alas. Yeah, it will delete things that have already happened, and then you can also set it so that...
Is there something you have to set to do that?
Let's see. Don't think so. See, I think I had older slots now, but they're gone.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a way under the edit settings. Well, there used to be. Let's see. Reuse guard time. I thought there was a way to say I only want to show this many at a time, but I'm not seeing that for some reason. If you want to keep track of who you're seeing, too, if you notice when people registered, there was a way to mark them as seen. So I'll mark Camillo as seen. Down here at the bottom is something that you see. It's who students have seen you and which students haven't. So if you want to like see students weekly or something, you can keep track of who you've seen and who you haven't. And you can schedule, sort of hand set up a time for them. Oops. Or you can send them an email, send a reminder. So this one's a little bit like the grade book or maybe some of the other things where the administration of it is kind of clunky. But if you do find yourself doing a lot of emailing with students back and forth about when you're going to show up and when you're not, and can you do this and can I do that time, and no I can't, and stuff like this, this might be a way to cut down some of that email.
All the changes you're making, I can see them straight away. Is there a way that I can work on my Moodle without any of the students that are already registered checking what I'm doing?
Yes. So if you want, that's a great question. If you want to work on your Moodle course, but you don't want students to see while you're setting all this stuff up, under administration, so in the administration block, there will be a course administration, and there'll be an edit settings. These are the settings for the whole course. And one of the settings that I think is down towards the very, very bottom, it could be under appearance. No. Guest access. No. One of these is hide. Maybe it's up at the top.
Hit the hide symbol.
Ah, here we go. Sorry. It's up in the top under general. Visible. Hide. So you can hide the entire course, or you can do what Peter was just suggesting, which is if I go back to my leave page, if I go back to my page, I can also hide any particular section I'm working on with that little eye thing. Yeah, so one of the things I used to do is hide, well, these are actually hidden. You can see them because I'm logged in as a student, but. You can also hide many but not all activities. So if you want them to only show up at a certain time, you can hide them and unhide them. Okay, communicating. So this has always been in Moodle. I never used it until I kind of realized what it does. And that's the news forum. The news forum is just a forum, like any other forum, in which is a discussion board. If you've been on another system, that's usually what it's called. But it has settings that are designed to make it useful for being a course announcements page. And those settings are under subscription. So basically, it's set up so that students are automatically subscribed and forced to subscribe. So forced to subscribe means not only are you automatically subscribed because you're a student in this course, but you can't unsubscribe yourself. Okay. If you want to give students the options, and these are all here under the little question marks, so you don't have to remember them, but participants can choose when they subscribe. Everyone is subscribed and cannot unsubscribe. You can choose auto subscription where you're subscribed but you can opt out. I recommend that one because not all students know that you can subscribe to things. The benefit of subscribing to something like this forum is that you get an email every time something's posted to it. And a lot of the complaints I had when I tried to use discussion boards in my classes was that, oh, we never know, we have to sit there and keep going on, and nobody's posted, and we never know when someone's posted. Well, you can actually subscribe and find out, get an email notification. The
Forced subscription do that as well.
forced subscription will. Forced subscription will, they're subscribed and they can never get themselves off. Right. what was it, auto subscription as their subscribe, but if later they decide, oh my gosh, she's sending so many emails, I don't want these, they can unsubscribe themselves if you want. But I started using this for course announcements because I realized not only can the students get an email if they want to have things pushed to them, which generally they do, but unlike with an email, there's a record. So if they forget that email or they delete that email or they lose that email, they can go back and see what had been decided. And here's an example of emails that I've sent that have gone out as emails, but they've also gone to this page. The other thing is you can add this, let me change this. You can set it up so that these will show up in the latest news block. That's also one of those blocks that if I get rid of it, yes, it should be available now from the, it's a special sort of pre-made block that is just set up to be a feed for your forums. Now, if you're savvy about this, you can actually feed any of your discussion forums into one of these blocks so that as students post, when they show up, the latest posts to the discussion forum have shown up. So if you're into that, you can do that. If you're into social media, you can also feed this feed so that it actually goes out to your Twitter or to your Facebook or something like that. But I've put some info in here. Actually, surprisingly few of our students use Twitter. I would say about 47%. Sorry, only 37% use Twitter. So maybe not the pressing need. You know, if you already use it and you want to do that, that's great, but you don't necessarily have to do it. And then the other thing I had already kind of gone over, which is that anything that you give a deadline goes onto the calendar. This might be one reason to use the assignments feature. So assignments is set up to receive things electronically if you want to, but you don't have to. It can also just be a placeholder for something that's happening outside of class, but that you want to show up on the calendar for students. So there's a couple of things. You give it a name and a description. Again, you can display the description, so that's helpful if you've got instructions there. You give it times when it's available. I like that there's a due date and a cutoff date, so you can actually build in some lag time for those who, you know, are trying to do it at the last minute and it's not going up. These submission types, online text would be if they were typing into the thing. File submission would be they're uploading something. I forget what submission comments is. Yeah, if they want to, you want them to leave comments about their files, I guess.
How do they identify themselves with this? I've never used this function. So how do I know who's what reading?
Aha! Well, why don't you guys all submit something? And we will see. So you can just upload anything that you find on the hard drive. So one nice thing about accepting things through Moodle is that you can see, I get this nice little, here are the people in my class, here are the ones who have submitted, haven't submitted. Let me make this smaller so we can see. Hey, Helen. And you can delete these columns if you don't want to see them so that you're only seeing the ones that you want. You can see the names of the files. The other nice thing about this is you can go up here to grading action. I can select everybody, download all submissions, so that I just get them all at once, which is nice, I think, rather than having to do each one. Or I could, click on them and read them in the window and make comments. You can.
Download them all at once and it comes to one big file. How does it work?
Let's see. Yeah, it's a zip file.
And then when you unzip it, there'll just be a page of somebody's answer to the next person.
Yeah,
Is it a Word document?
it's whatever they set up.
Upset.
So
Oh, yeah.
Doug submitted an image, right? Joel submitted a PDF file.
Right, okay.
You submitted. What did you submit?
It's a picture.
Oh. Yeah. And you would just open them up like you would normally.
Why is it still saying that I missed it?
And you can use this to put grades in and things like that if you want to. I found just the collection bit to be the part that was most useful for me, just as a way to get them all into one place. And there's a time stamp when it was done, if people want to haggle with you about when they submitted something. I'm sorry, Betty, what were you going to say?
It doesn't.
Correct, yes. And I don't think I've set it up so that I can add feedback to this. You can set up sort of how you want the feedback to occur, but in any case, it will never be that another student will see, that one student will see the feedback given to another student. That's not an option.
So
Yes.
if you go into grading, then you can see what's available.
Oh, yes, grade. Here you go.
So if you click
Grade
on
JC
that,
Todd.
you can add comments.
Right.
And they'll
Here
see
you
it,
go.
and you can drag a file up.
Or you could, type all your comments up. If you do like a big comment at the end, you could upload that, type it into Word, and upload it as a Word doc or something if you wanted to.
Line edit also.
You could line edit the file. You could download the file, line edit it, and then upload it. Right. And if you line edited by hand, you'd want to scan it.
Right.
Right. But I've
The track
I've done
changes
that.
would-
But track changes would come through. Right.
I have found in the last version of Moodle that sometimes the track changes don't come through. So I usually, after I'm done, save it all as a PDF file
Mm-hmm.
and then upload the PDF file.
With the track
And
changes
then you-
visible. Yeah.
The track changes are visible.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's always the occasional Mac to PC thing too that just completely blows up. So whenever possible, it's a good idea to save as PDF. You want to set up a certain thing? Yeah. And for people that are in the TRICO, you can actually add them as teachers or non-editing teachers. And the nice thing about that is teachers have access to the sharing cart. Do you guys know about the sharing cart? The sharing cart. The sharing cart is a block. It'll be, if it's not already added to one of your courses, it will be in the course. And you guys confirm if I'm correct here. You're looking at the page as students. Do you see this sharing cart down here? Should be all the way at the bottom. Okay. They never see it. You see it. It's for teachers, essentially. It is a way to move materials from one course to another. So if you have the sharing cart active in a particular course, you'll have this little icon next to all of the things in that course that looks like an arrow going up. So that's essentially to copy it to your sharing course. So I will change you guys from students to teachers, okay, after we're done here. And you guys, if you wanted to, say, take my sign up for a lab thing, you would just go here, click that, copy it to the sharing cart.
And then it shows up on that.
Right, and it shows up down here, and it shows up at the bottom. I've got tons of stuff in my sharing cart because I haven't had time to weed it out. But then when you log into another class and activate the sharing cart in that class, you can go, and then these little down arrows let you move it to something here. So if I wanted to take this week 6 quiz, right, I get a little arrow that I get to move around to say where I want it. So that's,
What about between years? Does the sharing cart
Yes, there is. So for all of these things, there is Moodle Docs. Which is just the documentation. But even easier than that, anything that you're doing, and I think Moodle actually, I have to give Moodle this. I think they've done a good job with this. There are these little, like with all the settings, there are these little question marks. So help for particular options, it sort of explains. Some of these are more useful than others. Sometimes it just sort of restates what it says. Sometimes it actually explains what it says. But even better, at the bottom, the Moodle docs for this page are automatically linked to the stuff for that page and for the particular version of Moodle that we happen to have. So that, I think, is very handy. Down at the very bottom of each page, there's a Moodle docs for this page, and it goes right to what you're looking at. We also have access to something called, and this you can get by going library. We have some Moodle docs here. If you go to the library's main page, there's Moodle. Oh, nope, sorry, that's Moodle. If you go to tech documentation, we have some of the stuff in here is Moodle. That I would say is probably mostly more general stuff, like I can't log on, things like that. We do have access to these atomic learning videos. Everyone on campus with a username and password has it. Your students will have access to this, and these are for various kinds of technologies. So I'm going to search for Moodle, and we're on 2.5, Helen? 2.5, and they're videos. This little what's new is kind of nice if you've used the old ones. We are also very soon going to have something even better, which is lynda.com. This is what Haverford and Swarthmore have moved to. It's kind of atomic learning on steroids. It's also atomic learning much more expensive, which is why we didn't go to it immediately. But essentially, this is all kinds of professional tech stuff. You know, AutoCAD is in here. All kinds of Adobe Illustration, Illustrator, all these major things. But also, somewhere in here, I think under Education, is LMS Moodle. And so some of these are free now. We're also going to eventually have subscription to it. So you can play around with those. And those are video tutorials. Same with atomic learning. It's sort of a walkthrough. Another thing I have found, quite frankly, is that if you just Google you know, Moodle how-to whatever, there's probably a video somewhere.
Can we assume all students are fluent on Moodle, even the freshmen?
Familiar, yes. Fluent, no. Yeah. And I mean, I know you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, too. A lot of the students who've worked for me, depending on sometimes they've had faculty who've done a lot of things with Moodle, and so therefore they've used the quizzes or they've used this. If they've never had a course where there was a faculty member who was using it, and I would say only very recently have people started using more than just the basics on a sort of... It's called Moodle Workshop. Workshop, I mean, you kind of could do forum if you like someone posted their thing, everybody read it online and just sort of typed in their comments. For the workshop, which is one of the types of activities, was actually built for peer assessment. So it not only has a way for students to upload a document, or you can have them type just in the window, you know, if it's something short, but it has ways of setting it up so that other students are commenting, setting it up so other students are grading, even if you want. You can even get it so that students get a grade for grading and a grade for their submission, right? That's, yeah, you can get really complicated. But basically, most folks that I know that use it for comments, essentially. You could set up, if you wanted them to use a rubric, sometimes it's helpful for students to be able to say, you know, on a scale of 1 to 5, how strong do you think the argument is, or something like that. You can also set those up in here, and students can apply it to something. Now, this is another one where it's very, very complicated because the settings interact with one another. And so one of the things that I wanted to do and haven't yet had time, but now I have folks, is this was an idea that someone floated that I thought was a good one when we were doing a workshop on peer review, which was to create sort of templates for common types of assignments so that you could come in as a teacher, download that, take it into your course, and then, you know, add in the text. But the settings would be set up the way that you would want it. So that's something we would like to do this year. And I should also add, and I should be saying this at all of these workshops, we do actually have the grant that allowed us to hire these lovely assistants also has money in it to help you with curricular development, including to help you get something set up in Moodle the way you need it to be. And we could, you know, course development stipends could be part of that. Hiring a student, if you have a lot of, say, quizzes that were paper-based and you want to move those questions in, and that's a lot of typing the questions in, right? We can hire students to help with that kind of thing. So just contact me and I can, we're sort of taking submissions on a rolling basis. I find many people have time only in the summer, but if you want to work on that during the year, it's still possible to get that. You can also now kind of customize this in the sense that you can, you know how you used to have all of your courses and you'd have to wade through everything that you're in, including, you know, the search that I was on. Yes, you can now drag and drop. And you can change the number that's displayed. So you can drag the ones you want to see up to the top and then hide everything else if you want. But they're just hidden. You still have access to them, right? So you can get them back if you need to. Here's something to show, too. So the calendar on someone's main page is going to show all kinds of things, not just stuff for your course. And it also shows my scheduled meetings, it looks like. I am investigating. There are ways to actually feed that calendar into your Gmail calendar, your Zimber calendar, or something like that, but it's tricky. So I'm looking into that. But I think that would be much more useful if that then information can go. I've done this with something else that has a kind of scheduling function, and the tricky bit is the updating so that it updates on your calendar when it's updated here. Because I think worse than not getting it on your calendar would be to have it different on one than on the other and not know that. Yeah, so there is this, oops, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted that. There is this course summary files. Helen, do you know what that does?
I mean, it's not particularly difficult.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway.
It attaches essentially a syllabus to it. What I always did was I would set up the topics and everything so that they mirrored my, trying to get back to my course. So that they mirrored, like week 1 was, you know, so that it mirrored whatever sections I had set up in the syllabus. But then I always had a PDF of the syllabus up at the very top that people could download and print if they wanted to.
Topic 1 or
Yeah, or like about this course, you know. You can now rename all of these sections.
Could you add a syllabus section to general?
Mm-hmm. So you could, to add the syllabus itself, you could just add a file, right? So this would be my syllabus. Right. And I would just pick the file from my computer. Let's see what I have here. Nope. I'll add a picture. Yeah. So unfortunately I didn't have a syllabus handy, so I added a picture, but it would essentially be the same thing. Oh, description. Here is the syllabus for the course. And it just shows up like that as something people can link. If they link, they open it, or they could download it and print it if they wanted. Because I think some people do like to have printouts, and people lose it and stuff like that. You can set it up so that it's in topic format or it's in weekly format. If you do weekly format, it automatically does however many weeks are in the period of time that you say, and then at the top of those, by default, it says week, X through date or whatever.
But how about keeping the topic format of saying this is from September 2nd to September 20th? So it's not exactly weekly.
Right. Let me show you another class that I did where I did something like that. Oops. Let's go to courses. Lost my courses. One thing I didn't show you guys is labels. So this is how I did this in this course. Here's what a student sees. I used something called labels, which are essentially you just put in a block of text. It could be an image, it could be an embedded video file, it could be anything. And I used it to break up the stuff that I'm doing. So here's an example of how I might do my blocks if I wanted to group them by type of activity. So, I might have lectures. Here are the lectures for this topic or whatever. Here's the readings. Here are the assignments. Or I might want to do everything by date. So I might have Tuesday, September 2nd, and then here are the readings for that. Here's the lecture for the day. Here's the assignment or something like that. And the way that you do that is turn editing on, and then let's close my sharing cart. You can see, so this is actually the topic block. All it is just the title. I didn't type anything in there. I could, but I haven't. Everything underneath that is a separate movable chunk. These chunks that are text are labels. So when I click on the labels edit button, you can see I get the classes. And it's just a text box. I can do anything that I would do in any text box. I can add video. I can add an equation. I could do fancy HTML. And so labels are handy for sort of breaking up long lists of activities or assignments or things like that and giving stuff organization. And you can also set, like if this is a head 1, you can set this as a head 2, and you can also have that sort of hierarchical structure you would have in a web page.
Like student role, switch your role.
Yes, switch role. It's very, very important. So on the course administration block, there's the switch role too. And use auditor in place of student. We had to go to auditor instead of student because students were seeing that they were students and thinking they were enrolled in the course. Now they only are students if they enroll through the registrar. If you add them manually, they show up as auditors, and that's a signal to them that they've got to go and register with the course. Because people are getting into the course and going, oh my God, I thought it was registered.
So